Hello, and thank you for taking this course. My name is Yorgos Papadopoulos, and I'm the Disability Officer for Laureate Online Education. This course is aimed at giving a clear understanding to faculty and staff of our policy and practices in regards to disability. What we should do, what we should not do, why we should act in certain ways, best practices, key messages, and what each person's role is. Disability issues are usually unique to the person involved. To give you a perspective, any student with a long-term mental or physical impairment that has a substantial and adverse effect on their ability to carry out normal day-to-day activities may be eligible under our policy and may, therefore, be provided with reasonable accommodations to their studies by the Disability Center. Everyone who works with Laureate Online Education in one way or another has the responsibility to ensure equal access to the programs and services of the universities we work with. This course will explain how we work together to meet that expectation. If you'd like to navigate through this course, please use the index. To go forward through this course, please use the navigation buttons on the bottom left and bottom right. To start this course, we would like to briefly introduce the legal framework which our policy for disability is based on and which informs the best practices we implement in order to provide our services to students. We will list the most common adjustments we will provide to the studies of students. We will describe how we reach a decision for a student with disabilities and how we communicate that decision to all involved. We will also show how we ensure accessibility from the point where a student makes an inquiry or is referred to the Disability Center, through to the implementation of the reasonable accommodations to their studies. Finally, we will talk about the unique role that enrollment advisors, faculty, and student support play in each stage of the process. The type of services we offer in the Disability Center is informed by three legal frameworks. These are the European Union E-Commerce Directive, the Dutch Equal Treatment Act for handicapped and chronically ill people, and the UK Equality Act. The European Union E-Commerce Directive sets up a framework for electronic commerce which provides legal certainty for businesses and consumers alike. It establishes harmonized rules on issues such as the transparency and information requirements for online service providers. The Dutch Equal Treatment Act gives people with disabilities a right to the adaptations necessary to enable them to participate fully in society. It requires provisions for computer usage accessibility, travel accessibility, leisure accessibility, and more. As Laureate Online Education is based in Amsterdam, we need to be mindful of the Dutch law in respect of handicapped and chronically ill people. The UK Equality Act requires equal treatment in access to learning, as well as private and public services. This, regardless of the protected characteristics of disability, age, gender, marriage, race, religion or belief, and sexual orientation. The Disability Center was created to assist students with disabilities receive equal access to the programs and services of Laureate Online Education. If we do not comply with these legal frameworks, we are at risk of litigation and may expose our partners to additional scrutiny by the UK authorities. Your cooperation and your role is significant in ensuring we adhere to and exceed the expectations of the legal frameworks we are bound to. As Laureate Online Education is working with British universities, we need to be mindful of the UK law in respect of disability. Laureate is responsible for the implementation of the disability policy and procedure, and faculty and staff are required to adhere to all policies and procedures published by Laureate and its partners. As regards to the Disability Center, this means that students at all times can expect zero tolerance from Laureate faculty and administration for direct or indirect discrimination due to a disability. Assistance from Laureate's Disability Center in removing barriers to study where reasonable. Information disclosed by the student regarding a disability to be kept confidential and only disclosed to others who need to know. You can find more information on the disability policy and procedure by visiting the CSS Center for Student Success disability pages. It's important to be clear. Only the Disability Center has the authority and the responsibility to provide or deny reasonable adjustments to the studies of students with disabilities. Faculty, enrollment advisors, student support, and other departments may come into contact with a student with a disability. Those departments or those parties do not have the authority to make that decision. The Disability Center accepts the responsibility for making such decisions, and LOE Online Education expects the Disability Center to make them and for faculty and the other departments to adhere to them. However, the Disability Center will not always be able to make the correct decision for a student unless it has your input. Faculty, enrollment advisors, and student support all have important information to share, especially when we are dealing with existing students who may have developed a disability during their studies. LOE Online Education Disability Center must make the decision on what is reasonable and what is not. We do that by having a good understanding of the law and a good understanding of LOE's assessment criteria. We must ensure that all students are treated fairly and that adjustments are consistently applied. Bear in mind that decisions on reasonable adjustments may have been made in a different way where you have worked in the past. Here, you should never discuss disability matters with students or prospective students. Always refer them to this Disability Center. First and foremost, we support students with disabilities. The most common adjustments provided to students with disabilities taking LOE's online courses are course material in an alternate format and additional time. We work with product improvements to ensure that course materials are always accessible. Students with certain disabilities may use assistive technology to access their course materials, so we try to ensure that all course materials are provided in an accessible format so students using assistive technology can have text read aloud or enlarged or adapted in a way that makes it more accessible to them. The development of online education and the technology it uses presents challenges for ensuring universal and continuing accessibility. If you find, or if you are informed of a component in a classroom that is inaccessible, please contact the Disability Center. We work with faculty to offer reasonable adjustments in the classroom. Some disabled students may require additional time to complete assignments due to the nature of their disability. As it would not be possible or fair to other students to allow disabled students an infinite amount of time to complete their work, LOE's senior academics are involved in deciding how much additional time can be allowed as an adjustment to studies. This is agreed between LOE and the student before they enter a module. Please continue the course to learn more. The Disability Center serves the LOE online education community for all aspects of disability. We train and advise faculty and other colleagues on any disability-related issue. We manage the documentation submitted by students to the Disability Center and ensure it is handled confidentially. We take care that only the appropriate level of detail is disclosed to the parties involved who need to know. Confidential documentation is securely archived and is eventually destroyed. We also offer advice and support for anyone who is working with a student with disability. We want to protect faculty and colleagues from unintentionally saying something that could be misinterpreted as discriminatory, and of course, we want to provide consistent services to our students. We are happy to talk through situations and provide potential responses to students who are showing signs of a disability impacting progress. We are happy to assist when you might be involved in sensitive communications or in other situations. We want to be sure that the way we respond to students with disabilities is consistent with LOE's expectations of ethical behavior as well as legal compliance and in accord with our principles of healthy organization. In most situations, students who are experienced with a disability can work ahead or otherwise manage time in a way that does not require an adjustment. Many students on our programs, although encouraged to do so, do not register with the Disability Center, nor do they disclose their disability in any way. This is often because they do not feel they need to. Their programs are accessible and their disability does not present any barrier to their learning. There are students, however, who have little or no experience with their disabilities and need time to learn how their disability impacts their study and time management skills. Even for students who have managed their disabilities for years, disability can still prove to be unpredictable. Our aim is to support all students with disabilities to achieve their full potential and be successful in their studies. Step 1. Referral. A student is referred to our office. This is the first step in the Disability Center registration process. Students might be referred by an enrollment advisor, faculty, or student support. Please remember, if you find yourself discussing a disability with a student, always refer the student to the Disability Center. Step 2. Receive inquiry. When we receive an inquiry from a student, we respond with some introductory emails that describe our services and the process for registering with the Disability Center. Step 3. Evaluate documentation. Students submit their application and supporting documentation from their medical expert or practitioner. This documentation is considered by the Disability Center, and if the student meets the criteria described in our policy, reasonable adjustments or appropriate assistance may be determined. Step 4. Agreement. The student is informed of the accommodation be provided and is asked to confirm that they agree. If a student is dissatisfied with the reasonable adjustments or assistance provided, they are entitled of requesting a review. The review will be escalated and handled internally within the Disability Center. Step 5. Conclusion. Once accommodations are agreed, a confirmation email is sent to the student and to the faculty member for each of the modules the student is enrolled to. This email informs the parties involved of appropriate further action. We have foreseen, at each stage of a student's study, to have visible signs directing students to the Disability Center should they need to. The most obvious signs are links on our web pages and statements within Blackboard prompting students to action. Students are expected to disclose details of any disability to the Disability Center. Faculty are not to proactively seek and open discussions with students to confirm if they have a disability. Faculty should not solicit or review any student disability-related documentation. If a faculty member is notified by a student that they have a disability, or if the student brings a medical statement to them, it is the faculty member's responsibility to refer that student with his or her medical statement to the Disability Center. If or when a student offers to share medical documentation with a faculty member, the response from the faculty member should always be to refer the student to the Disability Center. Please note down the following email address: disabilitycenter@liverpool-online.com. When faculty members are asked to implement an agreed reasonable adjustment, they will receive official notification from the disability officer. Faculty are not to provide assistance or reasonable adjustments for any disability unless there is official notification from the Disability Center's email account. This notification would confirm the student is entitled to specific reasonable adjustments. Although we have done our best to provide customized services, it may be from time to time that the adjustments are not always the best fit for the course in question. That could be due to technical or curriculum-related reasons or issues related to an implication of a student's disability. If you have any queries, need assistance, or have a remark to make regarding an adjustment to studies for a student, please forward it to the Disability Center, never to the student. Please do not copy students into messages to the Disability Center about potential changes to their adjustments. If a decision is made to alter an adjustment to studies, the Disability Center will notify the student using the appropriate language. Faculty are encouraged to make additional recommendations for adjustments to the disability officer. This, if they believe the student will benefit and that these adjustments will not disadvantage other students in the class. LOE strives to avoid negatively impacting the learning of the student. Whenever you are in doubt of a reasonable adjustment provided to a student, always contact the Disability Center. Students with disabilities have the right to confidentiality. All communication related to disability should be private communication. Such communication should be on a need-to-know basis and should be about the assistance and the reasonable adjustment process, not the disability itself. Confidentiality is of utmost importance. When faculty receive an email from the Disability Center about a reasonable adjustment to the studies of a student, there will be no specific mention of the disability of the particular student. We will never disclose the details of a student's disability unless the student specifically gives us approval to do so. Some students may wish to disclose the details of their disability with you, others will not. Regardless of how much information a student has shared with you, you should not discuss this information with anyone. Be sensitive to the individual requirements of students, whether it be communicating their needs or an attempt to maintain dignity with a very difficult issue. Some students may be very willing to discuss their disability with you. In such situations, we would advise you to focus on the provided adjustment rather than on the disability of the student. Please protect yourself from accusations of discrimination. And please have in mind to never mention a disability in a classroom environment, on a discussion board, in announcements, in shared feedback, or anywhere else in public. Many of you may have worked at other on-campus or online universities. It is important to know that for LOE online education, consistency across the institutions we work with is critical to supporting students with disabilities. We are therefore very grateful to you for taking this course. Our goal is for all faculty and staff to consistently apply the best practices developed by LOE's Disability Center across the organization. Consistency is best for the students. The policy and processes of the Disability Center often overlap with other policies and procedures. You might have in mind the mitigating circumstances process, the dissertation extension process, the leave of absence requests. That is why it is important to clarify what the Disability Center does and how. Mixed messages can prove to have a negative effect on a student's success. Consistency is best for faculty and staff as well. The literature online is full of examples of faculty and staff being accused of discrimination or being complained about. By having a consistent approach, you protect yourselves from accusations of discrimination. Let the Disability Center manage the issues with students with disabilities. You are then free to focus on your day-to-day activities. We have the systems in place and we have the appropriate support to respond quickly and effectively to students' requests. It is also very important to note that the faculty member has a right to hold all students accountable for professional behavior in the classroom. That is, regardless of whether or not they have a disability. The enrollment advisor and student support roles are very important in meeting laureates online education's responsibility for ensuring access and removing the barriers to learning for all. According to LOE's disability policy and the legal framework it sits within, we have an obligation to give opportunities to students to disclose their disability at any point in their studies, and to make it easy for a student to find disability services when they need them. Since enrollment advisors and student support will likely be the first point of contact for a student, it's important for you to know how to refer them to these services. If a student hasn't explicitly said that they have a disability, but you suspect that they may have ongoing difficulties with their studies due to a long-term medical or other condition, please inform the Disability Center. We work in a confidential manner to offer assistance and support. In case you are engaged in a relevant discussion with a student, it is very important to do so in a way that doesn't suggest you assume the student has a disability, or that you assume anything specific about that disability. It's our ethical and legal responsibility to be able to answer the question, where can someone find disability services? The answer is disabilitycenter@liverpool-online.com. Confidentiality can be challenging to enrollment advisors and student support, as you are required to note all interaction with prospects and students in the student record system. You will need to carefully consider how you record details for a student who discloses any information regarding a disability. If a student discloses a disability on the phone or via email, rather than input, for example, student has dyscalculia, or something even more vague such as student disclosed disability, it would be better to note something like student discussed disability services and was provided with contact information for the Disability Center. When you limit your notes in this way, you're not sharing actual protected information with anyone who has or might have access to the student record in the future. You're simply saying that the student asked about the Disability Center and was referred there. Although we have suggested you use the term disability, in your discussion and behavior with a student, you should not assume there is a disability, as you have no verification that this is the case. You may record the situation with the consent of the prospect or student. When making your notes, limit the detail to what the student disclosed and to general terms such as health issue, and try to use language that shows how the situation may impact the student's progress with as little detail as possible. Finally, just as it is important for faculty to be consistent in the way they address disability issues in the classroom, it is important for student support and enrollment advisors to do the same. Be respectful by listening carefully to what the student is telling you and accepting that there is a long-term condition of some kind, but discourage students from sharing too much detail about any condition. Let them know that you do not need detail. Always refer the student to the Disability Center and advise him or her that your role is not to evaluate or verify any documentation or situation that the student faces. The Disability Center is the body within the laureate that is responsible for those kinds of things. You are encouraged to discuss with the student how the Disability Center works if you feel knowledgeable enough to do so. However, consistency is critical to the appropriate support of students as well as the integrity of our systems and your own position within the organization. Every disability situation is unique, and it is understandable that you will not know all the possibilities for assistance in a particular student situation. Staff should not solicit information from students or prospects, nor should proactively seek to engage in a conversation regarding a student's disability. This is why we always want you to refer a student to the Disability Center to discuss what support laureate online education may be able to offer. Well done.